What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of Pistons Daily, where you can find daily content covering all things Detroit Pistons every single day. I'm your host. My name is Kyle Garrison. I'm over on Twitter at Kyle Garrison2. I talk all things Detroit sports. So head over there, give me some comments, questions, concerns, episode ideas. I'd love to hear from all you guys. Also, shout out to everyone who tunes in every single day. The channel is growing at an unbelievable rate, and it's all thanks to you guys. Also, if you can go check out the channel on Spotify, we are up and running over there, trying to grow the channel across all platforms. So go leave a review, a follow on Spotify. I would really appreciate it. But with that being said, let's jump right into today's video. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just a preview of Game 1 of the Pistons Summer League. And then I want to dive into some of the Motor City Cruise players on the roster. And then I want to dive into some of the UDFAs that will be on the Summer League team. And then before we wrap things up, I want to just talk about Chris Boucher and how he could be a potential target with the Pistons biannual exception. I'll discuss the biannual exception, kind of explain that as well. But first things first, let's just talk about the Summer League Game 1 against the Knicks. So that'll take place tomorrow on Friday. I'm recording this on Thursday. So you guys will see Summer League Game 1 tomorrow, and then I'll cover that on Saturday's episode. But one thing right away that I want to see in Game 1 of Summer League is obviously just Ron Holland. I think he's probably the most intriguing player on the Summer League roster, and he's only going to get a game, maybe even just a half. So we might just get a very small sample size of Ron Holland going into tomorrow, but a couple things I want to see. One, I'm just interested to see how the jumper looks. I'm interested to see if he's worked on becoming more of a spot-up shooter. I think with kind of the amount of point guards on the Summer League roster with Dennis Jenkins, Bryce Williams, Zakai Ziegler, another guard in Chaz Lanier, there's a lot of ball handlers and people to facilitate. So I'm interested to see Ron play some off ball. I don't want to see him, do the things that he knows what to do or knows how to do and is good at, like driving to the paint and finishing at the rim. But I'd like to see him move off ball, kind of work on some of his off ball action, and just get some more plays designed specifically to get him in the open court and allow him to just show off his offensive versatility that I know he's been working on. Again, very young player, 19 years old, so a ton of room for improvement. I expect this offseason he has been in the gym. I know Trajan Langdon touched on it, so just kind of excited to see what he is able to work on. And then another thing I'm excited to see is just Chaz Lanier overall, and I'm excited to see him, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And the reason I say that is the only really relevant player on the Knicks Summer League team is Tyler Kolek. And if you guys don't remember Kolek, he played at Marquette. He's got a great handle, great facilitator, a little bit undersized as a point guard, but he was on the Knicks roster some last year, played in some garbage time here and there, but very, very solid overall player in college and was excellent in the G League last year for the New York Knicks affiliate. And I just like the fact that Chaz Lanier is going to get a little bit of a challenge with Tyler Kolek, somebody who's seen the NBA, has seen the pace, understands the floor spacing and the movement and just how much faster it is at the NBA level. So having a guy like Chaz Lanier, who is his defensive energy is a little bit questioned, I think it'll be nice to see him kind of match up against a not a proven veteran, but somebody who's been around the league and kind of knows what they're doing on an NBA court, especially as a starting point guard for their summer league team. So I'm excited to see kind of just initially what Chaz Lanier does on defense, and I think that's something we should look out for. So I'll definitely cover that, but let me know if you guys are excited to see Ron Holland play, and once Ron Holland kind of eventually gets taken off the floor and sat, just because they don't really like to play second-year guys who had significant roles on NBA teams. So I don't expect him to play much, but guys like Chaz Lanier and Bobby Clintman and Dennis Jenkins and Bryce Williams and Zakai Ziegler and some of these other guys are going to be really exciting. So let me know below who you're excited to see play and kind of what your expectations are for a guy like Chaz Lanier. But moving on, let's just talk about some of the Motor City Cruise players that'll be on the Summer League roster. The first guy, I already mentioned him, Dennis Jenkins. He was unbelievable last year in the G League in his rookie year. He averaged 21.2 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists. He shot 43.8% from the field, 33% from three. So definitely something to work on with his efficiency. He took a ton of shots last year as well, and he was kind of their main guy. He was their go-to guy on that G League team. Him and Bobby Clintman played really well together, so I'm excited to see how him and Bobby kind of mesh. it's just always nice to have a good point guard holding down your G League roster. So we'll see what Jenkins can do, and if he can potentially, play his way onto the 15-man roster. I don't think he will. I don't expect that, but he's a very solid player, and should be fun to watch overall in the summer league and see how he kind of complements the games of Ron Holland and Chaz Lanier and Bobby Klintman and whatnot. And then moving on, another guy that I'm excited to see, another guy that I don't expect to make the 15-man roster, but to be a potential two-way player, and that's Tolu Smith. He kind of reminds me of a less physically imposing Andre Drummond, if that makes sense to you guys. He's dominant on the boards. Last year, he averaged 13.6 rebounds per game, 18 points per game, 2.3 assists, so showed off the ability to pass. And I like Tolu Smith's game. I watched a little bit of him, but not a ton. Again, just dominating the rebounds. That's something that's valuable for your G League team. And it also, I think, will alleviate some of the pressure from Bobby Klintman to be an elite rebounder, especially in the summer league. So I'm kind of excited to see Tolu Smith and Bobby Klintman kind of complement each other in the front court. Throughout summer league, I think Tolu Smith will play every game. I hope Bobby Klintman plays every game, but I'm not expecting it just because he is a second-year guy, has had experience at the NBA level. But for the first couple games, it'll be really fun to see Tolu and Bobby Klintman together on the floor. And then another guy that I wanted to touch on before we head into some UDFAs is John Ukamadu. I had some comments of people talking about him, and people seem to be really high on him. So I kind of dove deep into what he's all about. And basically, he is a three-point sniper, but doesn't really shoot all that many three-pointers. He's pretty solid on defense. He's about 6'7", 200 pounds. He plays that power forward position. So I'm excited to just see kind of his athleticism and see his ability to shoot the ball. He shot like 46% from three last year in the G League. Yeah, it was 43% from three in the G League for Ukamadu. So I think with Ron Holland probably only playing a game, maybe two. I don't see him playing more than one game. So a guy like Ukamadu could kind of step in at that small forward position later on in the week, show off that three-point versatility, and maybe even tap into some three-level scoring. We didn't see that much from him in the G League. More of a limited role, but I did see some defensive upside with him throughout the end of the year with the Motor City Cruise. He averaged only a block and an assist a game, but down the stretch in his last 5 games, he had 9 blocks and 7 steals. So he became more comfortable on the defensive end, and I think that always comes with time for rookies. So I'm excited to kind of see what Ukamadu does. He's from Detroit as well, so hometown kid, and given an opportunity, hopefully he's able to succeed. But moving on, let's just talk about some of the UDFAs that the Pistons added post-draft. And I've talked about a couple of these guys before, but Zakai Ziegler's a name. If you haven't heard of him, he was the point guard at Tennessee, so he's played with Chaz Lanier. I'm excited to see that backcourt kind of work together in the summer league at Tennessee. They were so fun to watch. Zakai Ziegler is pretty undersized, but him and Chaz Lanier were very, very, complimentary of each other at Tennessee. So I expect that to translate over to the summer league and allow Chaz Lanier to just thrive off ball like we know he can. And then another guy I wanted to touch on is Bryce Williams. Just an absolute elite scorer, elite 3-level scorer. Was somebody that I actually expected to be drafted in the second round and ended up not getting drafted. So I think he's a value pickup for the Pistons. He could go one way or the other in the summer league. On one hand, he could be very patient, be a very solid 3-level scorer, could start potentially, if Ron Holland's summer league gets cut short. Bryce Williams could step into the starting rotation. He's 6'7", so he's pretty big for a guard. He averaged 20 points per game last year at Nebraska, so he could be a very high-level scorer and be very efficient and kind of take what the defense gives him. Or he could be kind of a shot chucker. We did see that at Nebraska. There was games where he was putting up a lot of shots. Granted, that was because Nebraska, he was really the only offensive threat for them. But if he does get, stifled off the catch on the three-point line, there's times where he'll take an extra dribble and really chuck up a bad shot. So I don't expect to see that because obviously he's going to try and show off in this summer league and show what he can do and show off the efficiency. So I hope that he can kind of stay composed and just take his shots when the defense gives it to him instead of really trying to force it. He's not going to be the guy on offense like he was at Nebraska on this summer league roster. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how he plays a more complementary role, and I think he will play well. So I'm excited to see him. But let me know out of those two guards who you're excited to see: Zakai Ziegler, Bryce Williams, or both. And then just touching on a undrafted free agent that they got out of Minnesota, another Big Ten guy is Dawson Garcia. He is a more of a forward center slash type player. Played 5 years at Minnesota, but he averaged 18 last year on 37% from the three, which is really encouraging for a pretty big 6'11" guy. Not an insanely good rebounder, but can hold his own on the offensive and the defensive glass. And also could be a guy where you see some pick and pop action, like we want to see with Bobby Klintman. Dawson Garcia could be another guy who, sets screens, can roll to the rim, can also pop out to the 3-point line. So that'll be fun to watch. Just overall, just a couple Big Ten guys that I've watched play. Big Michigan fan, so I've watched a lot of Big Ten basketball, and I always liked Bryce Williams. Dawson Garcia flew under my radar, but as I've watched him more, I've grown to appreciate just his development over his career at Minnesota, and that he can potentially be a two-way guy for the Pistons. But let me know in the comments, out of these three guys that I mentioned, who you're most intrigued to see out of the undrafted free agents, and who do you think could potentially play themselves into a two-way. But moving on from Summer League, I just wanted to discuss the Pistons' biannual exception that they have at their disposal before we wrap things up, and a name that could fit that. So basically, the Pistons have $5.1 million where they can go offer somebody a contract up to 2 years for $5.1 million, a little over $5.1 million a year. I think it's like 5.13 or something like that. But the Pistons have that at their disposal because they are a team that chose to operate over the cap. And then they're also under the luxury tax. So they have this biannual exception where they can go out and sign somebody. They need to add to their 15-man roster. Their roster isn't full right now, so that could be an option for them. And somebody that could fit that would be a Chris Boucher. The Pistons don't have a backup power forward right now, so I think Chris Boucher could be a guy that steps in, can play your small ball five, can also play the power forward position. Shot 36.3% from three last year. He's a really, really underrated rim defender as well. He makes his free throws. He's a career 78% free throw shooter, so he's got a repeatable, good jump shot, and that could just be helpful for another backup forward that can come in and space the floor a little bit better than Isaiah Stewart, or if you were to put Asar Thompson at the four, or Jalen Duren or whatnot. So just, the center and forward shooting depth right now isn't great. Tobias Harris wasn't great from three last year, so a Chris Boucher could make sense. Maybe he provides some upside with that stretch four that the Pistons have been talking about wanting to target. But this is just an option. I'm not saying it's set in stone that the Pistons are looking at him, but another guy like Al Horford kind of fits that. I think that he also will be getting around that $5.1 million. So it'll be dependent. Chris Boucher could garner a little bit more money on the open market. So could Al Horford. And then at the end, at that point, the $5.1 million wouldn't do much, wouldn't move the needle for them. So, but if those guys are still available here in the next couple of weeks, that could be an option for the Pistons. And I'd like to see them try and add a backup power forward instead of experimenting with Asar Thompson and Ron Holland. I think those guys just need to play the wing and just kind of hone in on those skills. So Chris Boucher, Al Horford, somebody like that could make sense. But let me know in the comments if you think the Pistons should try to sign a backup four, or if you think Asar Thompson and Ron Holland can kind of fill those minutes with Tobias off the floor. If you do want the Pistons to go out and add, who would you prefer out of the remaining free agents that would fit the biannual exception? Is Chris Boucher a name that intrigues you? Is Al Horford somebody that you would be interested in as well? But that's all I've got for you guys today. Tomorrow I'll dive into the Pistons' first summer league game and just dive into what went well, what I think some guys need to work on, so stay tuned for that. But let me know in the comments or over on Twitter your thoughts on the Summer League roster and just who you're most excited to see. Also, let me know some options the Pistons front office could go in with the biannual exception and if you'd be okay going out and getting somebody like Chris Boucher. But as always, please like, subscribe, comment, turn on post notifications, and follow me on Twitter over at Kyle Garrison 2. Also, head over to Spotify and leave a review and a follow if you can. But once again, thank you all so much for tuning in every single day. Summer League is going to be an absolute blast. I can't wait to get out some of that content. And with that being said, that is going to do it here for episode 20 of Pistons Daily, and I will catch you all next time.